My name is Nathaniel. I'm from Aurora. I go to school here at CU Boulder. I'm an engineering major. So I work down at UC Health in Aurora. I'm a patient transporter, so essentially my job is just moving people around, getting them from point A to point B, monitoring their vitals in the meantime. Patient hospitality is kind of a number one thing we do. So we all essentially have the same jobs. It's not really a collaborative workplace in the sense that we kind of get together and do these tasks together, because a lot of the time all this stuff can be accomplished by just one transporter. There's some jobs that are special cases where you need more than one. But I'd say the amount of time I spend with my coworkers is pretty minimal. The thing about the system we use is we don't really have a way of determining who gets the jobs. This was, I think, a few months before I got hired, but there was a call from the emergency room that a woman had just come in and her water broke and she was about to give birth. So everyone got the notification at the same time. They all look at their iPods and they all kind of look at each other. And of course, none of the guys want to pick up the job. They're like, well, what if the baby comes out in the elevator or something? I have to deliver it. What am I gonna do? And she's like, guys, you're all trained in how to do this, but they all kind of looked to her to pick up the job, and she kind of didn't want to do it either, but she was like, whatever. And I think I've gone comfortable with the idea that one day I might just have to deliver a baby, even if the dispatcher preferred that. Let's say there's a really heavy patient. We have a bariatric bed we need to move or something. Certain beds that can hold up to 800-pound people. They're really big beds. They're really hard to move. Even if the dispatcher preferred to have someone bigger or a man do the job or something like that, they don't really get a say in it. It's just whoever takes the job. Having said that, though, I think a lot of the time those types of jobs are usually picked up by men. I think a lot of the time people see the job on the screen and they just wait for somebody else to pick it up and then go on to the next one. So I can't say that I know of any or can think of any. I think we all kind of have the same expectations put on us for the most part, because like I said, sometimes my coworkers will kind of be, sometimes we kind of expect each other to take certain jobs, but as for on the dispatcher's end, they don't really have a say in who takes the job. It's just whoever's there, so we all kind of have the same expectations on. So I'd say a majority of my coworkers are actually female. I think a majority of hospital work honestly falls on women who I think society views to have more of a nurturing nature. When there's a certain job I have to do that I've never done before, I don't know how it works or something, I'll usually ask a female coworker. Most of my coworkers that have the most experience working there and know the most about how stuff works, most of them are female. So I think it's interesting, kind of the balance of experience. A lot of us new hires are guys. A lot of the veterans, employee of the month for the past 3 months, always women. And like I said, our manager was a female for a long time. Yeah, and I don't really see the stigma of doctors being male and nurses being female as much as I used to, because I grew up in a family of healthcare professionals. My mom was a traveling nurse. That's actually how I got to this country. I think now it's a pretty good amount. Like I said, I think a lot of the people who've been working as transporters for a while, a lot of them are female, and a lot of us new hires are male. I don't know if that's an intentional thing that the department's doing, but I think it's more just over the past decade or so, I think it's been destigmatized that healthcare professionals tend to be female. When you're in this line of work, you're seeing people at their most vulnerable, and sometimes they're defensive, sometimes they're very kind of shut in. They don't really want to talk to you, and other times they really just need somebody to talk to. I don't know. It kind of gets you thinking what people are thinking when they're that vulnerable, we're in that position where they don't know if they're gonna see the next day, And I think I've been people's last conversation several times, and that's probably the heaviest part of the job. That's probably what I take home with me most. There was this one time that I actually had a patient. It was like a 20-year-old woman, who was like, I was with another coworker, and we did this job together because she had this entire like IV pole with a pump attached to it, an oxygen tank, something to monitor her heart rate, and like 2 different IVs. So it was like this whole big unit that had to be pushed on its own. So I was taking the patient in a wheelchair, and she was behind us following with the little machine. And this patient was kind of just flirting with me. That's, I think, the only time really I can think of where there was like a difference in gender. But she was super drugged up.
Okay, right.
So I'm sure it wasn't like a normal occurrence for her. But took her back to her room, and it was like time for a shower, and she was like, "So you're gonna give me the shower?" I'm like dead serious, and I was just like, "No, it's not my job."
Yeah,
It was really funny, but I think I don't think the gender was an issue or anything like that. I mean, it's fairly normal. I think there would have been a different reaction to it. I think I think if it was a female in my position, I don't think our coworkers and our manager would have been like laughing, joking about it like that. I think it would have been more a case of like, it's kind of harassment, you know. But again, the patient was drugged up either way. They're not going to hold that against them. But like making kind of sexual remarks is kind of seen in a different light between men and women.
Right.
So my manager actually recently left her position.
So
I think.
A female manager?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I have a male manager now. But yeah, she recently left her position. I think she got promoted, and she's working in a different district now. I believe she's at another medical campus, another UC Health. It's not in Aurora anymore, but kind of a recent one where I was taking this woman from the emergency room who had just suffered a stroke. Just very sweet old lady. And she was just having a lot of trouble, you know, talking. Obviously, she was kind of really slurring her words, but she was stable at this point, so I was gonna go take her to get another CAT scan, just to make sure everything was good. She didn't have any fluid or anything in her lungs. But so I took her in a stretcher, and you know, on our way over to the CAT scan department, we were just talking, and she was just telling me about well, first she asked me if I had any kids. I don't think she knew how old I was, but but I was just like, no, I don't. She's like, oh, okay. Yeah, do you still live with your parents? I was like, no, I live on campus. I'm a college student. She said, oh, okay. Well, did you do anything for Mother's Day? And I was thinking to myself, like, I mean, Mother's Day had kind of been a while, you know, wondering why she's asking me about that. But you know, I just answered like, yeah, you know, we went out to dinner. We, as a family, we just kind of went out and ate somewhere, you know. Kind of had a little bit of a get together between all the mothers in my family. And she's like, well, that's nice. She kind of just goes quiet for a while, and then she starts telling me like, well, you know, the reason I ask is just I didn't really do anything for Mother's Day this year because recently my son died. Oh, and it's like one of those moments where you don't really know what to say.
Yeah, definitely.
You're like, so I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, and she just starts telling me about like all his achievements and like everything he did. He was a Marine, you know, I was so proud of him. I was looking forward to spending Mother's Day with him, and I got the call that like he wasn't gonna come back, and I was just like, man, you know, it's one of those things that's like really heavy, and I think, especially as a stroke victim, other times I think they need somebody to open up to, you know. I don't know why that particular like moment in time stuck out to her, and she felt the need to kind of talk to me about it. I'm glad that she kind of got that off her chest, but I'm just wondering like how her circumstance kind of brought that memory out, you know.
Yeah,
Maybe she thought she was, you know, not gonna make it or something like that. But restraining combative patients, that one is a lot of the time. That one's not really obviously like when something like that happens, they don't call down to the dispatcher and ask the dispatcher to send out a job, and that job has to go out to all the transporters' iPods, or usually they'll just grab whoever's nearby, and a lot of the time they'll grab someone who's male. I mean, to restrain a patient, particularly like the nurses are predominantly female. That's that's just true almost everywhere, every hospital. But our nurses are definitely predominantly female, and sometimes we'll get a patient who's like, I think it was 2 weeks ago, no, it was 3 weeks ago, and it was actually this doctor who was in a room nearby where I happened to just kind of be taking my break, and she was trying to clean fluid out of this patient's ear. He was drugged up. I don't really think he really knew what was going on, but he had some sort of growth in his ear that burst. It's terrible. She's sitting there with like a tube trying to suck it up, but he was like pushing against the doctor and like trying to smack the tube out of her hand. Like his family was in the room, and he was like kind of trying to roll away, and so she asked me to come in there and restrain him, and I did so like to the best of my ability, but it was tough because you don't want to hurt them either.
It's difficult.
So I have to like hold his hands down, but the thing is like then he starts moving his head around, so I gotta hold his head still, and that's kind of the important part. You don't want that tube to like.
Right, because it's his ear.
Yeah. He actually how do I put this in a way that's kind of not disgusting? He actually like pooped all over himself while I was trying to hold him down.
Wow. Yeah.
It's terrible. Like it was like everywhere. And I just kind of look at me and the nurse make eye contact for like a split second. She just freezes and she looks at me and she's just like, "I'm so sorry." I managed not to get it on me, but it was bad. It was bad, man. Probably the worst one I've seen recently. Yeah. Usually when you're restraining people, I don't know. I guess he lost control of his bowels, or I don't know if he did it on purpose out of spite. I don't know, but